I'm actually in Mandurah, Western Australia, which is, about, for those who don't know, about an hour south of Perth. So very lucky to have been let into WA, um,
Yeah,
and enjoying some kind of freedom as well as the opportunity to be with my bandmates and make some live music and those kind of things. So that
nice.
how lucky we are isn't lost on me after spending much of COVID in Melbourne.
That's right. When did you head
Mm.
over? Did you head over to Western Australia for the grand final? Was that why you went over there in the first place to play the
I
AFL grand?
look that was a nice cherry on top, um, and we actually headed over for family reasons. Outside of the band playing the grand final, but as luck would have it, it coincided with that. So that was an amazing experience, obviously.
Yeah.
So
The
very
footage,
lucky.
the footage
Yeah.
looked incredible.
Oh, look, it was mind blowing. I mean, the size of the production for something like that is kind of, there's so much going on that you really feel like a small piece of a very large puzzle.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a rush. And, walking out, in the lead up, there's a lot of nerves because you're told, oh, there might be 25 million people watching worldwide kind of thing. So you're definitely wearing your brown underwear. But walking on, it was funny that as we walked out to the stage, those nerves went away and we felt like we'd earned our stripes, if you know what I mean, being around for 25 years or something like that. And it was kind of like, no, it's all right that we're here. We've got this. And
Nice.
with that, we had a really good time.
Yeah, that's great. Hey,
Mm.
so thank you once again for joining me. This is Jaxsta's second ever live stream. So we're new at this, and really pleased and very privileged to have you on. So thank you very much for that.
Oh,
Before
likewise. Thank you for having me.
Before we start, I just wanted to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So, Joel, I'm pretty sure, in fact, I'm absolutely certain that everyone watching this knows exactly who you are and what you've done. But I think it's still worth recapping some of the highlights just to give a little bit of context to your career. So, you formed Eskimo Joe in Fremantle in 1997 with Stu McLeod and Cav Temperley. Since
Mm.
then, the band has received 35 ARIA nominations. Three of your six studio albums have debuted, at number one on the ARIA album charts. Black Fingernails Red Wine spent 62 weeks in the top 50 ARIA charts, which is an incredible accomplishment. You've won 11 Whammy Awards, 3 International Songwriting Awards. 11 of your songs have finished in the Triple J Hottest 100, and you're still going strong. So Eskimo Joe have had an incredible career, but you also had an incredible career outside of that as a songwriter and producer, working with artists like G Flip and Dan Sultan and Mercy Mercy and Meg Mac and Jack River, to name only a few. So it's quite the career you're having. Now,
Thank you.
just as everyone on this live stream knows who you are, very few probably know who I am. So I'm Rod. I work for a company called Jaxsta. And Jaxsta is the world's biggest database of official music credits. So making sure that everyone who works on music gets credit for their work. So Joel, making sure that you get credit for all the work that you've done. And if you're a producer or a songwriter, an engineer or a triangle player, and you've contributed to a piece of music, you can go to Jaxsta, search for your profile, claim it, and do all sorts of cool things. So that's at jaxsta.com.
And that's
Now,
very cool.
yes, and your profile looks great up there, by the way. You've got many, many credits.
Oh, thanks, Rod. I mean, thanks for doing it. I mean, since, when I was buying records as a kid, that I was one of the train spotters who'd read every liner note and who did what and imagine who these people are and what they did. And, I really immersed myself in that stuff. And that disappeared for quite a long time. So to have something like this is really important. So people who want to go super nerdy into fandom like myself, or are just interested in working with people on records they like, and that kind of information to connect people is interesting, as well as you know, about fanning out about things, you know.
Right.
So thank you.
That's exactly what we're trying to do. So thank you for making all the music. Now, there's a couple of things, well, there's a number of things I'd like to talk to you today. One is, of course, about Eskimo Joe's career and the fact that you've got a greatest hits album coming out on December 10th called The World Repeats Itself Somehow. But I would like to start by going all the way back to 2009 and the song Foreign Land, because that song, it won 2 APRA awards in 2010, most played rock song on Australian radio, as well as best rock song of 2010. But it also won, it was also the runner-up in the 2009 Vander and Young Global Songwriting Competition. And that competition is actually on at the moment, and it's open to all songwriters around the world, published or unpublished. And you can enter at apraamcos.com.au and find all the information there. It's one of the world's most prestigious songwriting competitions. Prize money worth $80,000 across all the awards. So, you know, an incredible, a life-changing opportunity for all songwriters out there. And the proceeds from the entry fee all go to Nordoff Robbins Australia, which is an incredible organisation which uses music therapy to improve the lives of adults and children who are working through social difficulties, emotional difficulties, physical, psychological. So it uses musical therapy in an incredible way to help those people's lives. So Foreign Land, runner-up 2009 Vander and Young Songwriting Competition. And it's actually got quite a sad backstory to it in terms of the initial thought process behind the lyrics. What can you just talk me through the initial inspiration for writing that song?
Well, as far as lyrically goes, my friend Cav wrote the lyrics to this song, but I do know it came from some news that we learnt of in a shared experience where the band was in New York playing at this thing called G'day USA, which was like some kind of Australia US exchange kind of culture kind of thing, and we were performing at that. And it was a really strange day all round because we were being introduced, our performance was being introduced by Bindi Irwin and John Travolta, which is a unusual pairing in itself.
Right.
It was kind of like, what? And you know, we were standing behind a curtain ready to play, and in my earpiece, I must have been sharing the same, you know, in-ear frequency as John Travolta. So his mic was just coming clearly into my in-ears, which is like having an inner monologue of John Travolta talking to Bindi Irwin's mum about what school he sends his kids and rah, rah. And it's John Travolta's voice, you know, it's pretty weird. But that was weird. But what happened is we were waiting backstage before the show, maybe an hour or two before, and our tour manager came in, and news had just broken that Heath Ledger had just passed away. And he was also in New York on Manhattan Island, and he was also a WA, you know, artist,
Mm.
and someone who was similar age to us at the time. And that really just kind of knocked us for six, hearing that. Obviously, he was, you know, such a talented, important actor, and he was from our hometown, and we were in the same town, and we just learned he'd passed away, and we were just about to go on this red carpet kind of thing before the event, and so we just learned that, and we were stunned and sad, and then we did this red carpet kind of thing, which became all the questions were about Heath, because people had learnt that we were from the same hometown and were asking about questions about that. And so it's something that really affected us, and something that we could, you know, it's someone that we could relate to in a way, being so far away from home. It was such a sad, lonely situation
Mm.
to pass away in. And I know that that informed the lyric that Cav wrote quite heavily. There's a line in it that says, I smell the blood of an Australian, which was kind of referencing the press's, you know, feverish, just asking questions about it and just like trying to get some angle or whatever they were doing when something like this happens. And that's what that line references.
Mm.
But yeah, there was that. I'm guessing that's the scenario you were
Yeah.
talking about, and yeah, that absolutely was in the lyrics that Cav wrote. And another friend of ours, Steve Parkin, I think contributed to the lyric. He may have even had that line, "I smell the blood of an Australian." That sounds like something he'd write. And yeah, so that's what that was going on there.
So how then does the song, I guess, develop from that emotion or that experience? So is it that Cav has the lyrics and then brings them to the band, or did you have the music separately and the music seemed to fit where Cav was coming from? How did that then evolve?
Well, there was a piece of music played by a Turkish folk orchestra that featured this Turkish flute, which is the sample you hear at the start of the song, and that was from a CD that Cav had found in this Fremantle record store. And he took maybe 4 seconds or 5 seconds of that and made a loop, and then put three chords over the top of that, just an A minor, C, and an F for those who play music out there, and gave me a buzz and said, "Hey, you got to get over here super fast because I've got something on the go that's I think, pretty special." And he then played me that loop, and then the chords going over the top, and then I think I jumped on the drums and we started jamming that ad nauseum for like an hour and a half, just going around those three chords
Yeah.
with that loop playing, and it was super exciting, and it felt like one of those things that this is so fun to play. We can do this all day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then once that had run out of steam, or we'd run out of steam, we jumped off and then started, coming up with the rest of the structure of the song. I think that I came up with the change that became the chorus, the chord change that, it kind of modulates down as a way to get out of that loop we were in quarterly. And then we just bounced off each other. Cab had a pen and paper. He started writing down lyrics in the room, which is kind of unusual. Usually he sort of does that in a cafe in the morning or something like that. But I remember he was feverishly scribbling down lyrics while the loop was playing and kind of while we were recording stuff in as a demo. And yeah, then it came to we were like, oh, we need a third section. And then the idea was to do something that referenced Kashmir by Led Zeppelin, because
Yeah.
it felt like that was a good place to go, and it felt like that would be fun. Also, maybe the modus operandi, as far as the music goes for this song, was to play something that would be really fun to play live, and it almost is like an action film musically. There's all these scene changes, and it's almost explosions going off
Yeah.
musically, kind of thing. So we went there with the riff, and I think that was something that the three of us kind of workshopped a bit and came to where it is now. And then by the end of that process, I guess we had this pretty unique kind of piece of music that was, as far as our process in Eskimo Joe had always been to sit at a piano, sit at a guitar, get the song to a point with zero production where it could stand on its own 2 feet in a kumbaya kind of way around the
Right.
campfire or whatever, and still be a good song. Whereas this one was based more on that loop and bounced off that, which I thought was pretty inspired.
Yeah.
Sort of work by Cav coming up with that loop and then bouncing off that, then giving me a call saying, "You got to get here now," and it sort of, so it was a pretty inspired or inspirational kind of process, and
Yeah.
that kind of kicked off the next record for us, which was the record that became Inshalla.
Yeah.
And then for some reason we went on every single tangent that we possibly could and made a record that in hindsight just sounds like a weird mixtape. Um, but that's what we do in Eskimo Joe. That's what we did in Eskimo Joe. Every record that we made was like a kickback against the one before, and the one before, being Black Fingernails Red Wine, was thematically, like every song fit, and it all sounded like it came off the same record, and we were all on the same page. And it was probably the record with the band synergy just went zoop kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know why, but the next record sounded like about 10 different bands who couldn't decide what band they wanted to be. But, that was a jumping off point for that record. And it's still, it's still an amazingly fun song to play live.
Yeah.
And still gets a really good reaction. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
How regularly in your career do you think you've got one of those calls from Cav? You've got to come over. I've got something. Is that a regular occurrence over the band's history?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we were making records, it was pretty much we were on tour
Hmm.
or five days a week we were in a studio writing the next record. So it was kind of like we made it for ourselves like we had a real job, like we'd roll up with our briefcases full of shredded paper or whatever and pretend that we were going to work, even though we had the best job in the world. And it
Yeah.
was obviously, really great fun. But, I've got those calls from Cav many times, and it's a great call to get.
Yeah. And you ended up doing the album, Inshalla, with Gil Norton, who famous producer who's worked with Pixies and Foo Fighters. Um,
Mm.
what did he bring to the record?
Well, Gil, I mean, he's such a seasoned record maker, and he made Doolittle by the Pixies, and
Right.
and to a lesser, well, to the same extent, he made The Color and the Shape with the Foo Fighters. But for us, Doolittle is such a touchstone, and the Pixies is such a touchstone band for our band. And from when the band started, there were only three, there were tape players in cars when we started. I mean, we almost predate the internet itself. So it's
Right.
amazing that I'm talking to you on a phone, and the band's still together. But, you know, the only three tapes that we could agree on that we all liked were the Beatles, Police Greatest Hits, and the Pixies.
Right.
And so we always imagined if we ever got to a point where our band could, use a super producer, we want to make a record with Gil. And after Black Fingernails, we'd produced that record ourselves.
Yeah.
And we thought, maybe we've got the checkbook to do this now, to actually call our guy and ask him to make a record with us. And we did, and he was classic. Like we spoke to an American producer as well, and he was he didn't get our humor, whereas Gil is English. And so from the first phone call, we were kind of, taking the piss out of each other. And we were like, oh, this is going to be great fun.
Yeah.
So Gil came over, said he'd only fly business class because he's really tall. And when he walked into the room, it's like, you're not that tall, dude. Like, it was pretty funny. But, he was great. And his super strength or superpower as a producer is dynamics. And that's what that Doolittle record had, that quiet, loud thing, which pretty much was the blueprint for what Nirvana did with Nevermind, and nailed, beyond belief. So, the guy's got his fingerprints over what had happened in the 90s in a big way. And that, Nirvana are on record for saying that they were trying to make Doolittle by the Pixies with Smells Like Teen Spirit. And we all
Right.
know what that song did. So we had a lot of respect for Gil, and he was really good with the dynamics on the record. But I
Yeah.
think walking into that album, we'd sort of done a lot of work on it in pre-production. So it was probably a little bit difficult for him, because we all fancied ourselves as producers as well,
Right.
to kind of shoehorn himself into the process. But we ended up having a great time, and we made the record in Byron Bay with him. And, we love Gil. He's a great guy.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
you learn from him? I mean, obviously the production work that you've done since. Were there any things that you learned from Gil during those sessions?
I think it was that dynamic thing, like being really, probably he heard the record we'd made before the Black Fingernails one and thought it was, some of it was a bit like, like kind of not dynamic enough. And, he was the man to bring that. So that extreme dynamic thing. And what I did learn from him actually is a big part of production is how you work with an artist put your ideas forward, but it's important that the artist feels like they own the idea.
Right.
And so one technique that I noticed is if he wanted the drum part to get simplified a bit in the second verse or whatever, for example, he'd say, maybe let's have no drums in the second verse. Even that's not where he wanted to end up. He'd go
Right.
the extreme kind of thing, and we'd follow the bird seed back to the place where, he wanted us to be. And then when we got there, it was like, oh yeah, this was our idea. Kind of, it was really his idea. So, I mean, that was an interesting one. I think he's, someone who's as seasoned as that is, as much as anything, he's great at working with the people he's in the room with to
Sure.
get the best outcome with the psychology of the situation. So I think that was something. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And now Foreign Land is one of the songs that's going to be included on your Greatest Hits album, which is out
Hmm.
December 10th. What's it like seeing your body of work collected in that fashion? Because it literally does, it goes from what? So from Sweater all the way up to Say Something, which came out last year. So it really is your career on one record, I guess the greatest hits. What's it
Mm.
like? What's it like seeing them compiled together like that?
Oh, it's awesome, man. Like, I guess having a greatest hits album means you have more than one hit, which is great. And these are the greatest of them. And is it I'm not sure if we called it a best of or a greatest hits, but it's the same thing, isn't it? We definitely were a band that were interested in writing albums. Um,
Hmm.
and we romanticize the process of an album with a beginning, middle, and end, and a theme, and that kind of thing, because we're all born in the late 70s, so we grew up listening to albums. But obviously, you need songs to sell records. You need those songs that are going to work on radio. If you want to be a pop band as such, and we definitely wanted to be that. And so to have that compiled on one thing is great. I also grew up listening to certain greatest hits records, like the Police greatest hits. Is there a better greatest hits? Maybe ABBA. I don't know. The Police, they're pretty good. You just can't put them in your top albums of all time lists, right? That's kind of cheating. But um, yeah, it's an honor to
Yeah.
have stuck around enough to have a greatest hits record and have made 6 albums. I work with a lot of young artists nowadays, and record companies now are signing artists on 3 single deals.
Mm.
Um, we came through when we signed a 3 album deal, and the record company, even though the first record didn't blow up in a big way, they'd go, "Oh, this is a developing artist, and we're going to give them the time, and we're going to have them work with good people that they'll learn off." And so we owe a bit to that, I think. But yeah, it's awesome to have a greatest hits record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I think is so important. If you think of some of the artists, go all the way back to Australian art, In Excess, Midnight Oil, acts like that. That
Mm.
it was many albums into their career before they really hit their straps and got the commercial success. That development is so key. And yeah, I think it's unfortunate that it's perhaps not afforded newer artists in the same way that it was. Even acts starting around the time that you started.
Oh, completely, man. I mean, who knows if, like you just said, if those artists have time to develop. I mean, if we'd been judged on our first single, Sweater, it scares me to think what that would mean. Like we wouldn't have gone on to make music that we'd actually maybe like listening to. I mean, at that point, we were very much about live energy, and
Sure.
we view that as a slightly different thing to making a record, which is a separate piece of art to playing shows. And to have the opportunity to do that for us was huge. But I do fear for young artists who don't connect on their first 3 songs and then lose out on the opportunity to grow into amazing artists that they could be. There's definitely something to say for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Mm.
next year is the 25th anniversary, if I've done my math correctly. 1997 formed.
I think
I
you
saw
have, yeah.
I saw a post, I think, that Cav did, and he was reflecting on the fact that from your very first jam, there was a chemistry there. What do you recall of that
Mm.
jam? Do you even have vivid memories of the first time the three of you played together?
Yeah, I have memories of using a vacuum cleaner hose as a mic stand, and I think we had one amplifier and we borrowed a guitar, and you know, I didn't have a drum kit because I wasn't a drummer. But that was kind of the point. But I guess as much as anything, it's about the chemistry of the personalities, and definitely from other bands that we'd been in, and I'd been in a band with Cav before that, and that was in that band. It maybe wasn't the exact right chemistry of personalities, and therefore the music that we were making we didn't really relate to or connect with that much. And so then we started this band as a reaction to that, and just made really simple, straight ahead, like pop punk or whatever you want to call it at the time, kind of music. And we just knew straight away that this, three personalities, Cav and Stu, had known each other since they were 5 years old. Um, I met Cav at a school gig where my band went and played at his school, and he came up to me afterwards and kind of said, "Hey man, do you need a singer or a bass player?" And I was like,
Wow.
Absolutely, we need a singer." Um, so, that's how that kind of happened. And, there's some kind of, sorry, my 2.5-year-old's trying to break into the room. It's one of those classic Zoom moments. Yeah, it's that sort of we knew straight away, I think, that there was something going on there that was special. And we played in this band competition very early on and won that competition on basically a comedy show that
Right.
um, you know that because we didn't have enough material to fill the 20 minutes required. So it was kind of 12 and a half minutes of music, and the rest were just gags. Um, but the judges obviously, saw something in what was going on that they thought was pretty cool, and we progressed through and won that thing and got to play at a festival called Livid at the time, which was a big festival in Brisbane, and it kind of the whole lineup was basically everyone that was on Triple J at that moment.
Right.
And we were backstage with our backstage passes, kind of as imposters, like, who are these guys? But we played the show and got to hang out for the rest of the day and get a look into that side of the world. And the next day I went back to WA and quit university and went, okay, another year of study would be a waste of time. Let's
Right.
do this. Yeah. And then we made sweater as part of the prize package from that competition. And um, that got, it's added straight onto rotation on Triple J without us even knowing they had it. So there was a lot of, would you call it serendipity going on at the time, where the band kind of moved forward really quickly, which gave us, real hope. And then for the next 4 years, it was kind of living on the dole, uh, shifting debt around, and surviving on baked bean and fart jokes on the road as long as we could, until the day came when we could actually pay ourselves a wage that was more than the dole, which was the greatest, day of our lives. Basically, we're like, we're professional musicians now, Um, so it's been
When was that?
I mean,
When was that moment?
well, that was in 2001, I think. So
Okay.
we'd been going for 4 years by that stage. Um, and it was after we put out our debut album, Girl, and I think we signed a publishing deal with Mushroom, who I'm still signed to this many years later. Um, and they were pretty much like, then we could pay ourselves $326 a week or whatever it was,
Nice.
and it was happy days, you know.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
25 years later, well, I guess from 2001, that'll be 21 years later. Here we are
Hmm.
today.
That's right.
Um, so Joel, mate, I just wanted just one or two more things before I let you go. Quickly talking about your plans for obviously the Greatest Hits album, which we mentioned, but also the tour next year. the Black Fingernails Red Wine in the City, which is happening in March and April. And you're playing both those albums back to back, Black Fingernails Red Wine, and the song is The City. When do you start training? That sounds like an exhausting night.
That's what I was going to say, man. I mean, we're going to have to get personal trainers, absolutely, to last the distance. And we're going to have to, you know, work out how to play some songs that we've never played live before. And there's a lot of memory retention that comes with that many songs. But we're absolutely looking forward to it. I think, you know, particularly after playing the grand final the other day, maybe our aspirations of what we can do with the show have gone up a notch even since that. You get a, you know, that kind of performance there's a sort of adrenaline rush that comes with it that is addictive. And unfortunately, we have to wait till next March to do that tour, but I think we'll still be slightly high from that grand final performance come next March.
Nice.
And we'll be ready to go out and smash it. But you're right, we better get we've got to get fit, man.
Hey, Joel, we've just got 2 questions from people reading this, people viewing, and those questions, so we can not bother about that. That's all right. But Joel, thank you so much for your time. It's been so great to chat with you. Just a reminder to anyone watching, any songwriters out there, the Vanda and Young Global Songwriting Competition is open now. Entries close Friday, October the 8th. It's an incredible opportunity, whether you're published or unpublished, to have your songs recognized by judges, to win prize money that could change your life as an artist. So check out apraamcos.com.au, check out Jaxsta.com for all your music credits, and of course, check out Eskimo Joe, EskimoJoe.net or .com?
.net, I think.
.net.
Yeah, .net. Yeah,
for all the
good one.
The Greatest Hits record, The World Repeats Itself Somehow, and all your tour information for next year as well. And I think you've got a gig on the 16th, is that right? You're playing the Rock the Rangers, Saturday, October 16th?
That's right. Yep, we'll be there.
Lucky you.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, mate. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rod. You're a legend. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Cheers. Cheers, buddy.